Now, this child that's been born is called King of the Jews by Gentiles. These magi, kings, astrologers, astronomers, whatever they were. In those days, by the way, astrologers and astronomers were the same thing. They were people who studied the stars and believed that the universe, including the stars and the planets, are all coordinated. And so that by the motion of the stars and the planets, you could predict what things were happening on Earth. And there's some truth to that anyway, because tides are caused by the sun and by the moon. So there is an influence. And in those days, it was just one thing together for them. They didn't know there were planets and stars. They just knew there were heavenly bodies. In fact, just as a small aside here, when we study Scripture, which these magi also did, one of the things which is often said about it for the last 150 or 60 years is that it is inerrant. We rely on the Scripture because it's inerrant, which everybody thinks means without error. And that's not what the word means. It's a confusion. It's a homonym. Two things that sound alike. The word tear, if I said the tears are going to cause a disaster this year. Well, if you don't know what was under discussion, you don't know what the word means. It might have been there were some gowns that were all torn, and so now it's going to be a disaster. Or it might be that the weeds have a bunch of tares growing up along with them, and so the harvest is going to be disaster. T-E-A-R, T-A-R-E, they sound alike. That's why they're called homonyms, but they're two completely different words with completely different meanings. Inerrant has nothing to do with the word error. Inerrant means stationary. And the way the word is used comes from astronomers and astrologers. When they looked up at the sky, and this is true today, if you go out and look up at the sky and you're attentive, you'll see that some things are fixed, as if they are all stuck together in a big sphere above us, and in relationship to each other, they don't move. They're fixed, if you would. I mean, the whole sky might move, but they all move together. And then there are other things that you see that wander against this background, and those would include planets and the moon, and if a comet is coming through it, they wander, okay? So errant means wandering, and inerrant means fixed. And the terminology comes from astronomy. And what it means is that there are things that change and wander, and other things that don't change, and they are, if you would, sort of fixed and eternal. So when Scripture is described as being inerrant, it means it doesn't change. That the same message, the same revelation which is there is still there. It doesn't modify itself over time. The message is the message, is the message. And that's the actual meaning of inerrant, unchanging, fixed. Just an aside.